I know the Iranian military also said not only did they not get a ceasefire, but also that they're going to show that they didn't get a ceasefire proposal even at all. So I don't really know why American news is still running off of, oh, a ceasefire happened. Isn't that great? Isn't it great that Trump, our big...
By the minute, certainly by the hour, in terms of the events and how quickly things have transpired over 24, 48 hours. And so to be at a point where we're talking about the terms of a ceasefire, where Israel has said this is happening, Iran has said this is happening. This is a much better place than where we were just mere hours ago when we learned of the attack there within Qatar. So it is moving quickly, but we're all very. I am certainly very hopeful at the moment that we are in right now, that in fact, with the decisive measures that the president and his national security team have taken, that we could be in a place where Iran has a graceful exit here.
You're somebody in Washington who's, people on both sides of the aisle consider a straight shooter. You have what you believe in, and you stand by it. Sometimes it's out of favor, sometimes it's in favor with your.
Nope, she said Iran. I don't trust her.
By President Trump to order the on Iranian nuclear facilities, given what we have seen now as the outcome.
Well, again, I would just caution that we are all seeing things in real time. There are many questions that I think we have. Certainly, those of us in Congress are going to be seeking answers tomorrow at this classified briefing. I think that will be very instructive. But I think we all recognize the direction that Iran was heading with building up their nuclear capabilities was a place that was not acceptable. And so the decision to strike when the president determines so, you can do a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking here, trying to figure out, was this the right time? But it looks at this moment where the attacks, we're still going to be doing much of the damage assessment going forward, but have brought us to a place where not only are you going to see a ceasefire, but
amazing tweet of Trump in the past that works so perfectly for Trump right now. Who's negotiating for us in the Middle East? Bombs are dropping all over the place. Sleepy Joe is sleeping on a beach in California, viciously exiled by the Democrats, and Comrade Kamala is doing a campaign bus tour with Tampon Tim, her really bad VP pick. Let's not have World War III, because that's where we're heading. We've also blown past the 3:30 deadline, and since then, more Iranian news sources, more reliable Iranian news sources, are saying that they never even saw a ceasefire. So I don't know what the hell's going on. I know the Iranian military also said not only did they not get a ceasefire, but also that they're going to show that they didn't get a ceasefire proposal even at all. So I don't really know why American news is still running off of, oh, a ceasefire happened. Isn't that great? Isn't it great that Trump, our big, beautiful president, did it again? Another ceasefire. Yeah, Iran intercepts Israeli drone over Tehran by the MERS news agency. Israeli Hermes drone destroyed in Tehran again. This is the third of the kind. Whether there's a ceasefire or not and how stably it'll last, let's set all of that aside for the moment and just appreciate how much these ghouls are losing their minds. There wasn't a regime change in Iran. The Iranian people had a window of opportunity to take back their country. They didn't take it. I am surprised, to say the least. I was rooting for them. Now with this ceasefire that Trump and Vance pushed, they are in for another mile. The Ayatollahs maintain their stronghold. It is what it is. I am sorry to say. President Trump, why won't you let my Shah become the president? What is this? Mohammed Ahwazeh. Oh, this is a journalist in Iran. Air defense has been activated at Khamenei's residence in Tehran's Pasteur neighborhood now. Oh my God. Are they doing it? Is Israel trying to hit the decapitation on the way out? Knowing that it's not the way out at all? Holy, ain't he in a bunker or some shit? I don't know. Maybe it's a way to be like, oh, there's a ceasefire 3 hours ago. No, dog, that's not 3 hours ago. That's literally 6 minutes ago. I wouldn't assume that he's, amidst all of this, it would be really stupid if he's in his house. But what if the bunker is under his house? Imagine the Ayatollah's like, oh, imagine the Ayatollah was like, oh, these guys would never. Oh, it's a ceasefire. I believe it. Meanwhile, Tehran is exploding. And then he just leaves his bunker to go to his home. And he's eating kubide. He's like, come on, man. Can't wait to post about how women is the butterfly of the home again. Now that we have another ceasefire. After all, Americans certainly won't lie to me about this. I shouldn't be laughing. Stop. They're like, let's celebrate another job well done. We brokered peace once again. He has all of the leadership in the house. What's your obsession with kubide? I love kubide. It's also just like a funny word to say. We say kufte. Israel has not stopped bombing, and now apparently they're literally bombing in the neighborhood that the Ayatollah's in. Kubide is kebab. That's true. Sorry. Kubide is kebab. Forbes is saying Zoran is in the lead. Yes. In one of the polls that came out, Zoran has a little bit of a lead. We'll talk about that in a little bit. There's a different Shia that I'm worried about right now than Zoran. Yeah, and also reports of drone attacks near Baghdad are still incoming. I wonder, after surviving the most ferocious bombing campaign, Tehran is now witnessing a calm dawn. I'm not seeing any reports of a strike in Tehran, nor am I hearing any. Okay. Oh, that's it. That's it. 3 minutes ago, Syed Abbas Arakchi, as Iran has repeatedly made it clear, Israel launched a war on Iran, not the other way around. As of now, there is no agreement on any ceasefire or cessation of military operations. However, provided that the Israeli regime stops its illegal aggression against the Iranian people no later than 4 a.m. Tehran time, we have no intention to continue our... Oh, never mind. The final decision on the cessation of our military operations will be made later. Dude, they literally pushed it back. Oh, they pushed it back. They said 3:30. Now they're saying 4. Fake demons is right. Oh, no, 4 a.m. in Tehran. No, actually, that was literally... Never mind. 4 a.m. in Tehran is I thought the initial thing that they said was Tel Aviv time. So I got it wrong. Yes, it is already past Tehran time. They're still bombing. Wait, why the fuck did he post this now? It's already past 4 a.m. in Tehran. That's right. They're a half hour apart. As of now, there's no agreement, but then he announced an agreement. Yeah, this doesn't make any fucking sense. Why are you so horny for Iran to stay in the war? I'm not. Iran to stay in the war. Iran is getting bombed right now as we speak. Like, I think the last time Iran bombed Israel was like, earlier last night. What the fuck do you mean? What are they supposed to do? Not de-escalate? Dog, what are you talking about? Iran is still in the process of being bombed. There are some Iranian officials that have stated that there's no ceasefire that was ever given to them. Syed Abbas Arakchi, which is the foreign minister, came out and said that there was no agreement on any ceasefire cessation of military operations, except apparently there is one that they are abiding by. I'm like, you're misunderstanding my position here. I want there to be a real ceasefire, like a complete ceasefire. I just don't think that Israel is going to abide by one. And the Iranian government is giving different information. But while we're having this conversation, it seems like they're bombing Ayatollah Khamenei's building, like his neighborhood. So it doesn't seem like Israel is invested in this ceasefire at all. Do you feel like this is a de-escalation from the Israeli side? How the can you be a 41-month subscriber? This is going to look really good for Trump. I'm surprised you aren't seeing that. Why are you so horny for Iran to stay in the war? If you think any of the things that happened in the past 12 days looks good for Donald Trump, your calculation is insane. Like, you're predisposed to thinking you also have to be operating with the notion that Iran has to be bombed. Because unless you genuinely think, as a liberal or as a Republican, that Iran must have been bombed, okay, but we don't want to go into a longer conflict, you can't look at the past 12 days and be like, this was a spectacular W, considering that there was so much endless bloodshed. We only rolled the clock back to 12 days ago if this ceasefire is real and actually implemented. I don't want Iran to stay in this war. I just don't want any more war. I want an actual long-lasting ceasefire. And you coming in here to be like, wow, this is really up, dude. You want more war to happen? Why won't you just give the W to the big guy? You know? If Iran doesn't retaliate to the U.S., this will look great for Trump. I did the math on his last bombing campaign. Can't believe you showed that on streaming, coming bang. Unfortunately, that's not how the world works. This always hits differences. Fridays are my Mondays. What? I'm so confused by the things that you're saying. Why do you keep saying you want a ceasefire with no justice and an ongoing genocide? Would you be whining in 1942 that the Soviet Union should have had a ceasefire so Hitler could continue his Holocaust? You're like the libs MLK described? No, dumbass. Do you think Iran gives a about what's going on with the Palestinians? Are you kidding me? Have they brought up the Palestinians at all? Have they actually struck Israel at all for the Palestinians? No. The only time a Palestinian died and Iran retaliated was because that Palestinian died in Tehran. He was assassinated in Tehran. It was a violation of Iranian sovereignty. Yeah, it'd be great if Iran was like, we're lobbing these ballistic missiles for Palestine. You should stop. You should stop fucking killing Palestinians. That would dramatically change the calculation here. Not that it fucking matters, because they also internally are making this assessment to ensure stability of the regime. And if they were to say, oh, we're bombing Israel because of Palestine, then Iranians would get mad. Then they'd be like, why the fuck are you why the fuck are you putting our lives on the line? Yeah, I mean, if anything, it's like there's aspects of this that are worse than 12 days ago, because Iran now has a righteous cause to fucking leave the International Atomic Energy Agency. What do you mean? Of course they're doing it for Palestine. I think you guys miscalculate Iran's interest in Palestinian emancipation. The reason why Iran defends the axis of resistance is still for their own benefit. That is the reason why they designed a million different red lines that were supposed to kick in the moment that Israel invaded Gaza. None of those red lines actually were implemented. Hezbollah was the only militancy in the region that actually followed through on the promise, and so did the Ansar Allah regime. Now you can say, well, they're also backed by Iran. This is true. They are. But Iran itself did not do anything, and it has the most capabilities to do something, as demonstrated by the past fucking 12 days of relentless Iranian bombing campaigns in Tel Aviv. And in the process of Israel basically bouldering through every single fucking red line commitment that they created, that the Iranian axis of resistance had created, Israel made work of every single different regional actor, slowly but surely, in the process of ethnically cleansing the Palestinians, and inevitably directed their crosshairs at Iran. That was eventually going to happen. Iran's interest in Palestinian emancipation is born out of their interest in destabilizing American and Israeli influence in the region. It's not born out of a real emancipatory goal. I think some of you have forgotten that reality. It's just they are aligned because Hamas and the Palestinian population is a destabilizing force against Israel's ambitions in the region. And I'm sure there's plenty of people who are, genuinely on board. But make no mistake, if Iran was as invested in defending the Palestinians, they would have acted in a much more aggressive manner towards Israel for the past fucking 20 months of ethnic cleansing. Iran did not even help its own direct. Iran was unable to even help Hezbollah in the process. Anytime Iran has retaliated towards Israel is when Israel attacked Iran first. Yeah, bro, sure. Since 1979, IRGC's lost like 500 generals defending Palestine and South Lebanon, gives 5% of its annual military budget to Hamas, Hezbollah, yet you still call them non-emancipatory. They're literally the only altruistic state in the ME. Dude, I'm not minimizing their fucking impact. I'm not. I'm just simply telling you that there's a primary purpose for this. Also, no state is altruistic to others. Don't be ridiculous. There are reports that the bombings have stopped in Tehran, which would be consistent with some of the agreed upon deadlines stipulated in the ceasefire. Everyone I've spoken to said this was the worst night of the last 12. Early ceasefire was real, but I don't know. I said no state is altruistic. This guy said America is. Brother, what are you saying? America is the least altruistic state. The Soviet Union didn't enter the war out of altruism either. Your argument is pretty bad. Wait, what? I don't disagree with that. That is my argument. States can engage in emancipatory acts for other groups. The USSR's Cold War initiatives, you could make the argument, were not born out of a real desire to liberate people in the global South, but instead was to beef up allegiances and create a multipolar state with allies all around. The military operations of our powerful armed force to punish Israel for its aggression continued until the very last minute at 4 a.m. Together with all Iranians, I thank our brave armed forces who remained ready to defend our dear country until the last drop of blood and who responded to any attack by the enemy until the very last minute. This doesn't make sense because they said they were going to show Israel that the ceasefire is not real or whatever. Bro, spare me this anarchist Western bizo talk. Iran has lost much, much more than it has gained in these last 46 years of helping Palestine. Iran is ideologically the Islamic equivalent of Maoist China. I don't care if a Westerner can't understand this. Iran's regional interests align with the emancipatory goals of the Palestinians. Its regional interests align with the emancipatory goals of the Shia population in Lebanon. Its emancipatory interests align with like Iran's regional interests align with the Shia Houthi family's interest in the civil struggle, the civil war that took place in Yemen. I'm not discounting the metric ton of blood and weapons that Iran has given to all of the regional actors. But when push comes to shove and the state's interests overcome those emancipatory needs, you see the way that Iran reacts. Iran, even when it comes to their own defenses, has behaved in a manner that is so restrained that it only creates a larger permission structure to Israel to strike back and harder. Yeah, also Maoist China is not the best example as far as foreign policy goes, because there were some pretty big issues with with Mao's allegiances in the region anyway. I know what you meant when you said that, okay? I think Korea and less Khmer Rouge, for example. That's what I suspect. You were saying more like, look at what they did in Korea, like look at how much they helped out in Korea versus what they were doing with Pol Pot. But my point remains. All of Iran's top brass, including Arakchi, Khamenei, and every single general were young men during the Iran-Iraq War. That war was basically the Western Front of World War I. In my opinion, the Iranian leadership is reluctant to risk all-out war, especially as they know that's exactly what Israel wants. They're really in a rock and a hard place right now. Sure, yes, I agree with that. What? Odd claim from convicted tax fraudster and generous Hasbara funder Adam Milstein. Looks like Khamenei and his deputies have been marginalized and are no longer charged in Iran. The ceasefire agreement was done with the new leadership of Iran. What? Wait, that follows me? Oh, no. Oh, that's scary. That's concerning. Something about Iranian correspondence so far simply does not add up. I don't know what it is. I don't know what's going on, but there's something that is not making sense on the Iranian side.
I'm in Israel just 3 hours from now, but it's still unclear exactly where the Israelis stand on this ceasefire agreement.
All right, that's Al Jazeera's Hamda Salhout live for us out of Amman. Thanks so much, Hamda. Adam Clements is a U.S. foreign policy analyst and former Pentagon official. He says while Israel and the U.S. say they've met their objectives in this conflict, it's unclear what state Iran's nuclear program is left in.
I think that even Iran may not know fully what its capabilities it still has. I think it's difficult to account for some of the enriched uranium that Iran had. I think it's reasonable to think that there's...
Damn, Adam, we get it, bro. Jesus Christ.
Just the know-how of the scientists that were part of the program.
I read the Arakshi post.
They would still have some capacity. Of course, it's probably, we just don't know how many months. And so I think before the past few hours, when we didn't really know if there'd be any opening for a ceasefire, we're assuming that it'll stick. But we still didn't know next steps. If perhaps what the United States did, if it caused the regime to rush more towards trying to find a nuclear weapon, at least appears now that there's an opening that, at least from the signaling we're seeing or the press reporting on the interaction with the Qataris, that Iran wants to have some type of scaling down of the conflict and wants to sustain itself for now.
Just hours before Trump's announcement of a coming ceasefire, Iran fired a salvo of missiles at a U.S. military base here in Qatar. It was an unprecedented attack on a neighboring country with which Iran has long held close relations. But Tehran says the attack was a justified response to the American strikes on its nuclear facilities. Behdad Mahichi reports.
Projectiles and interceptions in the sky, this time over the Qatari capital, Doha. Shelter-in-place warnings as a barrage of Iranian missiles target the largest U.S. airbase in the Middle East, in what's being seen as a symbolic show of force. Tehran calls it legitimate self-defense and retaliation for the American bombing of its nuclear facilities on Sunday.
The message of this decisive action is clear and direct to the White House and its allies. The Islamic Republic of Iran will not leave any act of aggression against its territorial integrity, sovereignty, or national security unanswered under any circumstances.
Right, I'm going to have to be very careful. Whoa!
The airspace temporarily closed over Qatar as defenses shot down all but one of the missiles fired, the attack resulting in no injuries or deaths, but drawing condemnation from Qatar, which holds deep ties with Iran.
Qatar condemns, in the most severe words, the Iranian missile attack on the Al Udeid Qatari airbase. This attack represents a blatant violation of the sovereignty of the country of Qatar and a contradiction to the principles of good neighborliness, and represents an attack on international legitimacy and international law. And the state of Qatar confirms that it reserves the right to respond.
The sprawling Al Udeid base just outside of the capital, Doha, typically hosts some 10,000 American troops. But most personnel and aircraft were evacuated last week, the clearance visible in satellite imagery. Washington and Qatar say they were warned in advance that the attack was coming, some suggesting it's Tehran's way of signaling it doesn't want to escalate the conflict further. Behdad Mahichi, Al Jazeera.
Dorsa Jabari is also in Doha. She describes the reaction from residents here.
Multiple Iranian missiles intercepted over the skies of Doha. The residents in the city were shocked initially when this happened, and many people felt the earth shake underneath them. It did cause some panic and fear initially, but that quickly subsided once people realized what had happened, and that hopefully was the attack by the Iranians on the U.S. Military base known as Al Udeid Air Base here in Qatar. This is a military base that's been here since 1996. The Qataris built it at the cost of $1 billion, and it's been home to the biggest U.S. military presence in the region. About 10,000 U.S. military personnel call this base their home. But of course, this attack came clearly with prior warnings. The Qatari government was aware that Iran was going to launch this attack. They American and British embassy issued warnings to their citizens to take cover in the country, as well as the government announcing the temporary closure of its airspace over the Qatari skies. This attack clearly a message not only to the U.S. government, but also to the regional countries in the Middle East that house U.S. military bases, that Iran has the capability to attack them at any time. But clearly, choosing one of its closest allies and friends, the Iranians chose Qatar to launch this attack, which has been seen as symbolic because there has been no casualties reported and no injuries. And the Iranians have said that their target was the U.S. military base and not the state of Qatar. The Qatari government, for their part, have condemned the attack and also called for a de-escalation of the current crisis that is ongoing between Iran and Israel. Dorsa Jabari, Al Jazeera, Doha.
And Iraqi state media says an unidentified drone has targeted a site at Iraq's Taji military base. A large fire has been seen at the base just north of the capital.
Yeah, I don't know what happened with the Iraq bases. I don't think it was Iran directly, because we would have seen it. And even if they had any sort of strike capabilities, while they're getting, even if they had any striking capabilities while they were getting pummeled by Israel, I suspect that they wouldn't be using that on Iraq, but instead, open presents with another 100 gifted subs. God damn. Qatar Oilers are here. Yeah, now that things have seemingly quieted down, okay, and this was the final message. Okay, a couple things. One, I don't know what is going on the Iranian side, the Iranian leadership. There are inconsistencies in the messaging. It could be born out of like how fast this ceasefire was implemented. I do believe that the Iranian leadership would absolutely dive at the first shot. Of a ceasefire, though. That tracks with their track record. So I can totally see that. However, another 100 gifted subs, cinematic. Goddamn. Beyond the inconsistencies on the Iranian side as far as messaging. If we're going to analyze like Trump, the big, beautiful peacemaking president, this is yet another like tariffs are on, tariffs are off style situation. Tariffs are on, everybody panics, everybody yells at Trump, Trump scales back the tariffs, everybody goes, oh, actually, we love that there were no tariffs to begin with. You're so great. Okay. There's also this, obviously, Yashar Ali's assessment here, saying one of the most prolific propagandists for the Islamic Republic of Iran, furious that there's been some sort of ceasefire agreement, goes off message. He attacks President and Foreign Minister of the Islamic Republic of Iran. This post has been since deleted. I don't care. Like the assessment of Yashar Ali aside, this tweet in and of itself also, I think, is more about the inconsistencies of this deal. I don't know who that fucking person is overall. I don't know why I don't understand what is happening with the Iranian side, because they said that they wouldn't surrender. The Ayatollah's statements contradict what they ended up doing in the end. Ali Abunima says, Iran appears to have given Israel a reprieve. Israel will thank Iran by escalating its efforts to bring about the collapse and destruction of Iran's government and society. Let's hope there's more to this agreement than just quiet for now. That's what I think as well. Because I think the only reason why Israel said yes to this is because Trump showed that he didn't have more appetite for further escalations on the American side. Iranians did the thing that they always do, which is limited retaliation. But because Israel's air defenses are in tatters and significantly depleted, without America joining the conflict with a serious escalation, like straight up, actively taking an active role in the conflict, I don't think Israel's offensive campaigns were going to be enough to stop the Iranian ballistic missiles from flying into Tel Aviv. So that is the reason why, especially that, and also the fact that Israel's goal here wasn't to just take out. Israel's goal here was to take out the nuclear facilities or whatever is also bullshit. They didn't meet any of their military goals. They did not meet any of their military goals here at all. And they didn't get to do what they wanted to do, which was to do decapitation strikes and full-blown regime change. And America did not bite. They did, though. How do you know? Because there's no nukes, chatter. That's why. Because there's no nukes. Because Israel's ultimate goal of nukes was bullshit. That wasn't real. That wasn't a real situation at all. They just made that up. Why would they make something like that up? Because they wanted to do regime change in Iran. The speculation part of this is not even speculation. America did not join the conflict beyond bombing the Fordow sites and the two other nuclear sites. One where they were developing. The Fordow site is where they're enriching the uranium, and the other two nuclear sites as well. That was very limited overall. We still don't know if they actually successfully destroyed these sites. But once again, Iran had already talked about how they had moved the enriched uranium away from Fordow. So the nuke part of this is a red herring. It's bullshit. It's not real. They also voted in the parliament to pull out of the International Atomic Energy. It's a red herring till someone gets nuked. We did that shit in Iraq. We got a ton of ships parked out there, man. Don't get it twisted. Yeah, okay, but if you understand we did that shit in Iraq, you understand that it was a massive failure. And it didn't even happen in Iran this time. Iraq is what Israel wants to do in Iran. They failed to do that this time around. The reason why they failed to do that is because they don't have the capacity to do that to Iran or any other country on their own. They can only do that if Big Daddy America joins the fight. And Big Daddy America joined the fight in a very limited fashion this time around. They did not go beyond what the most, I mean, it was still a severe escalation, make no mistake, but they didn't go past blowing up the 3 nuclear sites. In the process, Israel realized that they did not have the air defense capabilities and was more willing to back away from further escalation, which is why I assume when Iran did the exact same thing that they've done, like they did in 2020 after the Qasem Soleimani assassination, like they've done in all of the Operation True Promises so far, when they attacked in a retaliatory manner in an effort to maintain some semblance of sovereignty, in an effort to save face and get a symbolic retaliation in the books, America was fine with that de-escalation, so this ceasefire was implemented. The reason why I still say Iran lost in this, Iran lost a lot in this process is not only because they had a ton of people die in the process, but they also lost any sort of sovereignty they possibly could push for because they lost their air defense capabilities and they allowed Israel to have air superiority over numerous parts of the air for extended periods of time. They got attacked by America. They got attacked by Israel. They lost high-ranking IRGC members in the process. But ultimately, Israel lost more than Iran did. So this is, I don't think that this is a victory for Iran, especially considering that I suspect Israel is going to simply re-up and rearm their air defenses, take note of the holes that exist within their anti-air defense capabilities, like they did after Operation True Promise 2, okay? They will also be able to re-up and rearm in the process and then try this out one more time. If you think that this is done for Israel, you're wrong. I don't think Israel is done with Iran. I don't think Israel's done with Iran at all. Sufficient retaliation from Iran in this process would mean that Israel would be running to America to demand a ceasefire, to get a ceasefire done, because they were incurring too many penalties from Iran. They would be, their counter strikes and their Air Force targets in Iran would also be diminished. But that didn't happen. Iran's retaliation, on the other hand, especially on the last day of this ceasefire just now, was incredibly diminished. They claimed that they were going to strike Iran one last time, and they never did. And they basically let Israel unload without any sort of retaliation back at Israel whatsoever. That they were not untouchable, that they were not immune to retaliation. They were not immune to incurring penalties for Israeli society. That's it. If this were to be a significant victory for Israel, this would be continuing right now. Like what Israel is doing, the bombing campaigns would be going on. There'd be no ceasefire. America would have joined the conflict in a much more meaningful capacity. Iran would be using a significant amount of their defense capabilities and offensive capabilities on American positions. It would be devastating. There'd be far more bloodshed. But Israel doesn't give a shit. That's what their goal was. I think this was humiliating for Benjamin Netanyahu as well. The amount of bloodshed that Israel was able to cause in Iran without achieving any of their specific military goals is a humiliation for Benjamin Netanyahu. That on top of the rest of the world literally either celebrating or staying quiet, watching Tel Aviv buildings get demolished by Iranian ballistic missiles, probably also doesn't feel great for Israeli society in general. Dan Cohen says, at this point, the default assumption must be that any ceasefire is another ploy by the U.S. and Israel to seduce Iran into lowering its guard so they can assassinate Khamenei and attempt their long-term stated goal of regime change. It would be foolish to put it mildly to trust Netanyahu and Trump. I agree with that. But if I can see that, and random Twitter analysts can see that, I am assuming that the IRGC and the Ayatollah is also aware of this reality. A senior U.S. official said the blueprint for Monday's ceasefire agreement came from discussions with Iranian officials who made it clear to the Trump admin that they would come back to the negotiating table and discuss their nuclear program on the condition that Israel stops bombing them.
What I said.
U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham seemingly not too happy about the ceasefire. You'll see in the upcoming hours, if not the upcoming days, who actually lost, or what kind of humiliations took place, because Israeli officials are going to start speaking. There's going to be a lot of anger and resentment and be like, what was this all for? We lost 25 of our big, beautiful citizens. We lost entire city blocks, reduced the rubble, and you couldn't even take out the Ayatollah. How dare you? You know, shit like that. Let's see what Israel's greatest defender in America has to say.
So what would I say about the ceasefire? If the ceasefire is genuine and will lead to peace, it is a major league accomplishment. If the ceasefire is used to rearm and regroup by Iran, we've gone backwards. How can you determine the difference? So what would I say?
Yeah. I just don't trust the American government, and I don't trust the Israeli government at all when they say they want a ceasefire. But that's usually what happens when you use the previous negotiations as cover to implement a first strike and continue a bombing campaign for 12 days straight. So who knows? What? Hasan doesn't trust America? What a shocker. Okay, close your eyes for a moment and think of yourself outside of living in the boundaries of this state. Okay? You're a country that has been branded a foreign adversary of the United States of America. You go to the table, you go to the negotiation table in good faith. Okay? You set up a deal. Close your eyes. You set up a deal. After this country has already implemented sanctions on you, you set a deal with them and you abide by said deal. Then elections happen. The next president comes in and immediately casts aside that deal that you put together. You still abide by the principles of the deal. Then that president adds additional sanctions in spite of you continuing the deal. And then you say, okay, well, I'm going to start, creating nuclear silos. I'm going to start enriching uranium again. That president goes away. A more favorable, quote unquote, supposedly favorable president comes into power. Now you're thinking, oh, we can re-implement the same agreement. After all, this president was the vice president when I with America. That never comes. Okay? All the while, the party that is like your immediate foreign adversary, the regional power, is doing everything in its power to destabilize the region and expand and keep killing all of your proxies, keep killing all of the people that you have supported. Okay? You still go, we have to do a negotiation. There's nothing we can do here. We have to do a negotiation. These are Americans. Maybe this time it will be different. You watch that same country over all of the other regional proxies that you have defended in the past. You watch them cooperate with other regional adversaries in the process of over your regional proxies. You say, nah, it'll be different with us. I'm sure we'll be able to get a deal done. Then they sick their attack dog on you while using the denuclearization agreement that you were implementing or that you were at the table negotiating. The attack dog strikes you in the process. And then the country that you're negotiating with also hits you. How could you ever trust this country again? How could you ever turn around and be like, well, you know, seems like these guys are definitely a normal nation state. Seems like these guys are definitely going to be dealing with us as even partners. I would literally turn around and immediately rush to China. I'd be like, listen, dog, we are a vassal state for you, okay? For your interests, for your ambitions. Use me like a weapon. That's what I would do. I'd be like, we have gotten nothing from these guys. We are no longer capable of being a friendly, cooperative partners of the West because they don't want us. They don't want us at all. I'd go to Russia. I'd go to China. I'd be like, give me the aircrafts. Give me the S-400s. Give me the Dongfeng missiles. I will strap me to the Dongfeng missiles and lob me in their direction. I am your servant. That's what I would say. If you think China would say yes, you'd be insane. I don't think so. I will buy all of the Labubus. So my point is, I don't think this is a real ceasefire, but we'll see. I don't think Israel's too happy. I don't think Israel's happy about this process at all. We shall see what they do with all of their anger and all of their resentment. Probably punish the Palestinians even more. Feels like the first Gaza ceasefire polls come back 10x harder. Today is a massive victory for American neoconservatives. They have proven America is untouchable and can bomb whoever we want with no consequences. With one attack, MAGA isolationism is dead. There's also that too. There's also that side of the equation as well. Because you're not wrong. I mean, MAGA isolationism was dead the moment that Trump decided to